The education tradition continues on yet another episode of Sunday Talk. On this Sunday Talk, we look at the Reform Commissioner, and by this I mean the Electoral Reform Commissioner, which was promised by way of an announcement made by the Honorable Prime Minister of Dominica when he addressed the nation following the swearing in of his cabinet, I think, for the 5th consecutive time in Dominica. Unprecedented. And the elections of December 6, which were held amidst great debate for electoral reform, and alas was had without such reform, left a very bitter taste in the mouth of many. And he, I guess, upon reflection, felt that it was necessary to inform the nation that a commissioner had been appointed to look at the reform request and all the matters of electoral reform. And on paper it sounds good, although I hope that the mandate of the Electoral Reform Commissioner is not going to usurp that of the Electoral Commission of Dominica. In fact, the commissioner should work in tandem with the Electoral Commission. And in addition, I believe another commissioner should be appointed from the opposition faction. So not only should the Honorable Prime Minister get to appoint a commissioner, there should also be a commissioner coming from the opposition side of the argument, and not just the opposition party, which means the main opposition party, UWP, but all the interests which were canvassing for there to be electoral reform. So together, this side, this consortium should be allowed to nominate or should recommend that there be a second commissioner. Because the Prime Minister really does not have the authority on his own to determine how elections are going to be reformed. Because remember, although he may be able to appoint a commissioner, but he represents, as an independent person, as a leader of a party, one faction. He cannot speak for the entire government. He speaks for the majority side of the government. And there are other people who should speak for the minority side. Now, I'm not too sure whether a leader of the opposition was already sworn in. But even that is the case, the Prime Minister should not and cannot continue to take advantage of situations. I believe good faith should allow for the opposition views to be represented at the commission level, and that in addition to the commissioner that the Prime Minister appointed, he should also offer an olive branch, so to speak, to the opposition to appoint an independent commissioner to represent the views of the other side. Because it is my belief that this one single solo commissioner who was appointed by the Prime Minister will most likely discuss reform based on the wishes of the Prime Minister and his interest. No, I'm not saying that the honorable jurist is biased in any way, but come on, it is only common sense. And it can only be fair if both sides were able to appoint commissioners. Those commissioners meet in tandem with the Electoral Commission, and submissions are placed on the table, and they are rationalized out, or they are thrashed out in the interest of both parties, meaning the majority and minority side of government, and to the benefit of the people. And this is how I see it. And I hope there is still time for that to be done. Because this country does not belong to one faction, one set, the incumbency. It belongs to all. And I think it's time that we start running the state, the country, in the way in which civilized nations run and conduct affairs of state and of governance. I think it has been one-sided for far too long, and I honestly believe that the incumbent Prime Minister has been taking advantage of the situation, especially when there is lack of timely intervention and probably the best strategic position in terms of dealing with matters of state. This is my Sunday talk for today. I hope it makes some sense to at least one person, and that we can have a discussion on my presentation.